This is the 7th timeline video of the Apocrypha mini-series, the so-called 400 Silent Years. Today, we will discuss Wisdom of Solomon, Wisdom of Ben Sira, and we will include Psalm 151. Shalom and Shalom Israel. Hello Christians. What up everyone else? Welcome to today's discussion of something to think about. It's presented by ThaBruthaz. Today's discussion will be on Apocrypha, chronology, and composition, Wisdom of Solomon and Ben Sira, hashtag Apocrypha timeline. We will also highlight Psalm 151 in today's discussion. Administrative. Like always, I will go over some administrative details before we get started. Setting expectations. I plan on reading virtually everything on my slides and my notes since some folk can only listen and are unable to watch. I will be following a script. It helps me to stay on point. Reminder, we will go a little slower than other content providers. This is not a cut session. No smoke and daggers here. Pause if needed. These are some of the sources we will use in today's discussion. Pause if needed. Here are some more sources we will use in today's discussion. Pause if needed. Here are some additional sources. Pause if needed. Here are several Bibles we will use and/or reference in today's discussion. Pause if needed. These are the remaining sources we will use in today's discussion. Note, we do not claim that any image or source that we use and/or reference is 100. Pause if needed. Fair use disclaimer. This video is for educational and scholarly purposes only. Pause if needed. Doctrine disclaimer. This video contains our personal opinions and interpretations and is not meant to dictate doctrine. This video does not contain hate speech, nor do we condone violence of any kind. Pause if needed. Before we get into today's topic, it's that time, once again, to give all praises to the Most High. I will see you in a minute.
All praise to the Most High.
All right now.
All
Sing it.
praise to the Most High.
Go ahead, brother.
All
Come on now.
praise to the Most High.
All right now.
All praise.
Praise to the Most High.
Praise him. Praises
Right.
to the Most High. To the High. Praises. Come on now. Go ahead. Praises. All praises. High. Praises. High. To the Most High.
Yahawah.
Giving all praises to the Most High. Once again, I couldn't do what I do without the Most High. You couldn't do what you do without the Most High. Let's get started. This is the 8th video of this Apocrypha miniseries, and this is the 7th timeline video. Here's the agenda. We will recap the previous 7 episodes. We will review historical timelines. The bulk of this discussion will be on the Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, Psalm 151, and then I will make some final comments. Recap. Once again, these are the typical books listed in the current Protestant Apocrypha that we presented in episode 36. This is the cover of my copy of the Protestant Apocrypha. It has these books in it: 1st and 2nd Esdras, Tobit, Judith, Esther including additions, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Baruch including Letter of Jeremiah, 3 Holy Children, Susanna, Bel and the Dragon, Prayer of Manasseh, 1 and 2 Maccabees. These are the current books that we have already discussed in previous timeline videos. All these ones in the red. Okay, 1 and 2 Esdras, Tobit, Judith, all the way down to 1 and 2 Maccabees. These are the last 2 books in the Protestant Apocrypha that we will discuss in today's timeline episode: Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach. Okay, these 2 right here. We will also discuss Psalm 151. This is the first video in this mini-series, titled Apocrypha 400 Silent Years and Non-Canonical Books, Episode 36. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed 6 reasons that they use to describe the Apocrypha as silent or non-canonical, and we provided actual sources for each reason. This is the second video of this mini-series and the first timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Books of Ezra, Episode 37. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed the various titles of Ezra. We did a breakdown of 1 and 2 Esdras from the current Protestant Apocrypha. Main takeaway: 2nd Esdras chapters 1 and 2 and 15 and 16 are separate from 2nd Esdras chapters 3 to 14, which is the core work. This is the 3rd video of this mini-series and the 2nd timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Books of Baruch, Episode 39. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed how all of the books of Baruch may have been attributed to the scribe Baruch, which was used as a pseudonym. Please watch episode 39 for more details. This is the 4th video of this miniseries and the 3rd timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Maccabees and the Hasmonean Dynasty, Episode 40. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed where the name Maccabees originated and gave a detailed overview of all the books attributed to the name Maccabees. And yes, there are more than 2 books attributed to the Maccabees. This is the 5th video of this miniseries and the 4th timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Additions to Daniel, Episode 41. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed all of these additions: Prayer of Azariah, Song of 3 Holy Children, History of Susanna, Bel and the Dragon. This is the 6th video of this miniseries and the 5th timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Additions to Esther, Episode 42. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discuss all of these additions. Mordecai's dream, the king's edict authorizing the destruction of the Jews, the prayers of Mordecai and Esther, Esther sees the king unannounced, royal decree reversing the previous edict, and the fulfillment and interpretation of Mordecai's dream. This is the 7th video of this miniseries and the 6th timeline video, titled Apocrypha Timeline, Tobit, Judith, and the Prayer of Manasseh, episode 43. This is the thumbnail.
Check it out.
In this episode, we discussed things like how Tobit and Judith were actually considered canon in a few of the councils, the many discrepancies within the story of Judith, and how the Prayer of Manasseh could be inserted after 2 Chronicles 33 and 13. Please watch episode 43 for more details. Apocrypha Timeline, Historical Setting. Where do the Protestant Apocrypha stories occur within the canonical Israelite writings? We will start once again by quickly reviewing the historical timelines we presented in the previous timeline videos. I am repeating the previous historical setting timelines for those who may not have watched any of the previous timeline videos. This is the temple timeline from the video Israelite Writings, Various Temples Defined, episode 15. Okay, some of the markers on this timeline include, like for example, Solomon Temple built 959 BC. Then we have Solomon Temple destroyed 586 BC. Onias IV built a replica temple in Egypt approximately 154 BC, and then we can see up here the second temple got destroyed 70 AD. Okay, those are some of the highlights. I will be using these timeline markers as references. You can pause at any time if needed. This is the Israelite captivity and/or dynasty timeline from the video Israelite Writings, Laws Important, episode 12. I want to use these dynasties as references in addition to the temple reference markers. Okay, as you can see here, we got the Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Greek, Hasmonean, and Roman. These are approximate timelines. Also, the Roman dynasty did not end in 135 AD. This just coincides with the Third Jewish-Roman War for the discussion we had in episode 12. I also want to add that the Hasmonean dynasty did not end the Greek dynasty. Okay, the Hasmonean dynasty represents approximate time the Israelites were in control of Jerusalem. Once again, pause if needed. I will now rearrange the temple timeline to make room for the dynasties. Now we need to make additional room so we can add the Protestant Apocrypha historical setting timeline. Okay. This orange time bar shows the approximate date range of most of the historical settings within the current Protestant Apocrypha of today, except for possibly chapters 1 and 2 and 15 and 16 of 2nd Esdras, which we discussed in a previous video on the books of Ezra. Okay, again, we will be using the Bible Hub timeline throughout the Apocrypha miniseries for almost all of the historical settings, since they fall within the Bible Hub timeline. Okay, we are not saying that this Bible Hub timeline is 100. We're just using it as a reference. Okay, again, this orange bar right here represents the approximate setting of all the books within the Apocrypha, the Protestant Apocrypha, from 720 BC to 135 BC. Regarding chapters 1 and 2 and 15 and 16 of 2nd Esdras, these chapters may have been a reflection of current events post 70 AD to the right of this timeline, and that depends on who you believe. The historical setting, according to some sources, claim this is the setting of these 4 chapters, okay? Chapters 1 and 2, 15 and 16 of 2nd Esdras, okay? post 70 AD. So you see up here 70 AD, Second Temple got destroyed. So some people believe that those 4 chapters, the setting is post 70 AD. Okay, once again, we discussed all 4 of these chapters in a previous timeline video called Books of Ezra, episode 37. Apocrypha information. Reminder, for each Apocrypha book discussed in our timeline videos, we will present the following information: description, date, text written, authors, languages, and historical setting. Once again, we will not show the date found if applicable. For example, if and when a scroll was found in a cave, we will not present information on such findings in today's discussion. Purpose. The purpose of these timeline videos is to provide some detailed information on each Apocrypha book to get a historical perspective on what each book is about, and eventually discuss how they fit or do not fit into the canon, and eventually compare these findings to current canonical writings.
What do you think?
Before we get into today's discussion, we have a few questions. How did the early church view and or use the book we call the Wisdom of Solomon? Do you know the 5 books of Solomon? How many of the Protestant Apocrypha books use pseudonyms for its author? Do you believe that Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach are canonical? Please pause this video and put your answers in the comment section below. Once again, I hope you paused the video and provided some comments. We definitely want to hear what you think. Let's continue. Wisdom of Solomon and Wisdom of Ben Sira, aka Sirach. Just like we have done in previous timeline videos, we will start today with a collective overview of where these books are found in some Bibles. Once again, we will also include Psalm 151 in our discussion today. Overview of Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, and Psalm 151. Okay, these 3 books are not in the Old Testament of Protestant Bibles. They are segregated into the Apocrypha section of some Protestant Bibles. Wisdom and Sirach. They are interspersed within the Old Testament books of many Catholic and Orthodox Bibles. You will also find it in the Britain Septuagint translation. Psalm 151. Hard to find interspersed within any Bible. My understanding, they exist in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bibles. I haven't bought one yet, but if you search Amazon and you look at some of the read the contents, sometimes you'll see at the beginning that Psalm 151 will be in there. Okay, Wisdom and Sirach are also interspersed within Ethiopian Orthodox Bibles. Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach. Okay, these 2 are not included in these common Bibles. King James Version, New Living Translation, New International Version. They are segregated into the Apocrypha section in these Bibles: Revised Standard Version, Good News Translation, New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. They are interspersed within the so-called Old Testament of these Bibles: New American Bible Revised Edition, New Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition, New Revised Standard Version Anglicized Catholic Edition. Okay, this not a complete list. Okay, these are just some examples regarding Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach. Psalm 151. Psalm 151 is not included in these common Bibles: King James Version, New International Version, New Living Translation, and Good News Translation. Okay, although the G&T has a small Apocrypha section, Psalm 151 is not in it. Okay? Psalm 151 is segregated into the Apocrypha section in these Bibles. Revised Standard Version, New Revised Standard Version, Updated Edition. Okay, Psalm 151 is not interspersed within the so-called Old Testament of these Bibles. New American Bible Revised Edition, New Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition, New Revised Standard Version Anglicized Catholic Edition. Okay? Again, Psalm 151 is hard to find interspersed within any Bible. Okay? Notice how wisdom and Sirach are interspersed within the bottom portion here. See all these Bibles right here? Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach are interspersed within these Bibles, but Psalm 151 is not. Okay? I will now show some examples of how these books are either not included, segregated, or interspersed within the Old Testament of some Bibles. Okay, bear with me a sec. Okay, so we're going to start here with the King James Version. So as you can see here, we're going to look in what's called the Bible book list, and we're going to see if we can find Wisdom, Sirach, Psalm 151. So as you can see in here, there's an Old Testament list, a New Testament list. So let's go ahead and scroll down. As you can see, if you look through these lists, you're not going to find Wisdom, you're not going to find Sirach, you're not going to find Psalm 151. Okay, let's go to my next tab here. We are now on the GNT, Good News Translation. We're going to click this Bible book list. So you can see there's an Old Testament, New Testament, and if we scroll down, you see there's an Apocrypha section. In here you can see there's Wisdom, there's Sirach, but no Psalm 151, okay, which is what I already mentioned. So you can find Wisdom and Sirach in the GNT. You're just not going to find Psalm 151. This is Revised Standard Version. We're going to click on this Bible book list. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention, I'm in BibleGateway.com for those who are just listening, okay? So in this drop down here, you can see we got Old Testament, New Testament, and if we scroll down, there's an Apocrypha section, okay? In here, there's 18 books, more than the 14 that's in the Protestant Apocrypha that I have. So in here, you can see there's Wisdom, there's Sirach, and if we scroll down here, we can see Psalm 151. So if you want to go see all three of these books, or all the books in the Protestant Apocrypha, you can go to the RSV, BibleGateway.com, and you can read all those books there. Okay, so now we are in New Revised Standard Version Anglicized Catholic Edition. Okay, I'm going to click on the drop down here for the Bible book list, and we're going to see, if you look on the left under the Old Testament, what do you see? Right here, there's Wisdom, there's Sirach, well, there's also 1 and 2 Maccabees, Tobit, Judith, but you're not going to find Psalm 151. And this is an example of them being interspersed within the Old Testament. Okay? Let's go to this next one here. Now this is the New American Bible Revised Edition, NABRE. We're going to click this drop down list here, and we're going to look down here, and we're going to see, once again, there's Wisdom, but you see it doesn't say Sirach, it says Ben Sira. So there's Wisdom, Ben Sira, 1 and 2 Mac, Tobit, Judith, but no Psalm 151. Okay, I got another one here, the New Catholic Bible. Click on this drop down. And then, as you can see, once again, under the Old Testament, interspersed, we got Wisdom, and this time it says Wisdom of Ben Sira. Okay, so you got Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach, 1 and 2 Mac, Tobit and Judith, but no Psalm 151. Okay, so that's all I really want to show you here. Go back to our presentation here. Okay. Here's a quick review of what we just saw. Okay. KJV. All 3 books are not included. What is that? Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Psalm 151. Not included in the King James Version. GNT. Segregated. It contains only 7 Apocrypha books, including Wisdom and Sirach. Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach, but not Psalm 151. RSV. It's segregated. It has 18 Apocrypha books, including Wisdom, Sirach, and Psalm 151. The RSVCE, NABRE, and NCB, contain Wisdom and Sirach are interspersed within the so-called Old Testament books. However, Psalm 151 is not included. It's not interspersed. Okay? Once again, this is not a complete list. These are just some examples. Okay? Before we continue, note, most of the following information that I will present for the remainder of this discussion will come from one or more of the sources listed on our source slides in the administrative section of this video. Again, most of what you're going to hear from here on out is from someone else. It's from a source. I will give a couple opinions, but majority coming from a source. Wisdom of Solomon. Information and timeline. Wisdom of Solomon is also known as Wisdom. It's also known as the Book of Wisdom and the Book of the Great Wisdom of Solomon. Okay? Wisdom of Solomon could possibly have many other titles. Wisdom of Solomon. Description. According to some scholars, this book has 3 sections. Section 1, Wisdom, chapter 1, verse 1 to 6, verse 8, or chapters 1 to 6, depending on your source. This is called the Book of Eschatology. Section 2, Wisdom, 6, verse 9 to 11, verse 1, or chapters 7 to 10. This section is called the Eulogy on Wisdom. Section 3, Wisdom 11:2 through the rest of the book, which is chapter 19, a historical retrospect of Israel in Egypt and in the wilderness. Other scholars divide the book into 2 or 4 sections. If 2 sections, then combine 1 and 2 up here and then call it the Wisdom section. This book defends divine guidance, the afterlife, and the reward of virtue. This book was regarded in the early church as arguably the most important of all the books in the Apocrypha. In the early church, it was one of the books linked with Solomon, together with Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the Song of Songs, and the non-canonical Psalms, Odes, and the Testament of Solomon. Used as scripture by early 3rd century writers such as Tertullian and Clement of Alexandria. Became a part of the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox canon, but is considered Apocrypha by many Protestant groups. Languages. Some scholars believe the original language is Greek, possibly Alexandrian Greek. No trace of a Hebrew original has been found. What one scholar saw was not the original Hebrew, but a translation in Hebrew from the original text. Jerome also says a Hebrew text of wisdom has not been found. It appears to have been composed in Greek sometime between 100 BC and 40 AD. It seems difficult to accept the book was originally written in Hebrew due to the numerous instances where dependence on the Septuagint seems undeniable. And it is very difficult to put wisdom into Hebrew because the style is so thoroughly Greek. Those who believe the original language is Hebrew tend to be those who also believe the author was Solomon. Preserved in Greek and Latin text and translated into Syriac, Arabic, and Armenian. Of the latter, the Armenian is said to be the most important. Author. The author of the book is unknown and perhaps the work of more than one writer. Many scholars believe it to be a singular whole, the work of one mind. They point for proof to the fact that the entire book is a consistent whole directed against two evils, apostasy and idolatry, and that the language is from beginning to end uniform, signs of one writer. Some scholars believe the author to be an Alexandrian Jew or lived in Egypt. Others claim the author to be a Palestinian Jew. Okay, as you can already see, there is a lot of ideas surrounding the possible author and his details. And once again, all the stuff that I'm reading so far has all been from sources. Author continued. One scholar claims with certainty that the author was an Orthodox Hellenistic Jew of Alexandria with a philosophical education. In chapter 9 of this book, Wisdom, it appears to have been written by Solomon, who addresses himself to the rulers and kings of the earth. However, this is disputed by many scholars. It was valued in the early church, but its lack of Christian allusion suggests that it is not a Christian work. One scholar divides this book into two parts. He attributes Wisdom 1:1 to 12 verse 8 to a writer living in Samaria in the time of the Seleucid Empire. Wisdom 12 verse 9 to the end is Alexandrian. Another scholar believes there are three parts with possible different writers. There are some reasons for questioning whether the whole book can have come from the same writer due to the differences between chapter 1 through 11 verse 1 and 11 verse 2 through the rest of the book. Differences of subject matter, thought, and style. Early on, some believe Philo of Alexandria was the author, approximately 25 BC to 50 AD. This included Jerome and several others. Others claim an older Philo, while others claim a possible Christian Philo. Some also ascribed Wisdom of Solomon to the author of Ecclesiasticus, aka Wisdom of Ben Sira, Jesus, son of Sirach, early 2nd century BC. One scholar even claimed the author was Zerubbabel, possibly called the second Solomon, because he restored Solomon's temple. The speaker is said to be of royal birth, chapter 7 verse 5, and says, "Thou hast chosen me to be king," chapter 9 verse 7. The authors of this type of literature were called wise men or sages. Examples: prophets say things like, "Thus saith the Lord," not wise men. So if you see something like "Thus saith the Lord," that's probably a prophet. Otherwise, it's probably a wise man. There is doubt whether another wise man of the Hebrews wrote this book in a prophetic spirit and ascribing it to Solomon, using a pseudonym. Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian, Origen, and Cyprian ascribed this book to Solomon. Jerome and Augustine clearly do not agree. The Moratorium fragment has this reference: Wisdom, written by the friends of Solomon in his honor. Some claim the writer is impersonating King Solomon, Pseudo-Solomon. As you just saw, the author could be a lot of different people. Date written. The earliest mention of this book is perhaps found in the Moratorian canon, 200 AD, written possibly after 50 BC. Approximately 20 BC would fit the contents of this book. One scholar believes a date between 50 and 30 BC for the first part of the book and 30 BC to 10 AD for the second part. An indisputable starting point is obtained from the fact that the writer made use of the Septuagint version of Isaiah, but that may be no later than 200 BC. By common consent, this date is far too early. The last possible date written depends on the undoubted use made of this book by Paul. Would require a date no later than the 1st century AD. Some scholars view the book as originating during the troubles experienced by the Alexandrian Jewish community from 38 to 41 AD. Others have argued that the book is earlier, dating from the reign of the Roman Emperor Augustus, 27 BC to 14 AD. Even more scholars disagree, obviously, on the date written. Grimm dates it 145 to 50 BC, Thackeray 130 to 100 BC, Gregg 125 to 100 BC, Grafforer, excuse me on that one, 100 BC, and Bousset under the Emperor Farrar, 40 AD. The evidence is literary, historical, and philosophical. We know from Sirach that the Septuagint of the Pentateuch, the prophets, and at least a portion of the writings was completed by 132 BC. It may therefore be inferred that wisdom was written after 132 BC. The book was composed earlier than any of the New Testament writings. The book was probably composed about 120 to 100 BC, and this date range agrees with all the facts. So they say. Historical setting. The historical setting and the date written appear to be the same. Wisdom 3 verse 1, 5 verse 1, 6 verses 5 to 9 imply at the time of writing the Jews were suffering under persecution. We have the resulting feeling of animosity against the Egyptians, the persecuting power expressed in chapter 11, 16 to 19. This same source claims that the early Ptolemies and even Cleopatra treated the Jews respectfully. That's around 145 to 117 BC. The writer is describing a state of things which belong to the past, though to a recent past. If the author is an Alexandrian Jew or lived in Egypt, then the setting mentioned could be prior to Onias IV building the replica temple in Egypt. See episode 15, Various Temples Defined, for more on this topic. If the author is a Palestinian Jew living in Judea, then recall the Maccabean revolt which started in 167 BC. Life was tough before this, in my opinion. In either case, a date about 100 BC would be suitable for the historical setting and the date of composition. Again, the author is describing things from a recent past. Once again, the Protestant Apocrypha historical setting is this orange bar, approximately 720 BC to 135 BC. So, where does the Wisdom of Solomon fit in historically? Recall, according to scholars, the historical setting and the date written appear to be close to the same era. Verses in Wisdom of Solomon suggest Jews were suffering under persecution. The author appears to be describing things which belong to a recent past. Some believe the persecutions may have been before the Ptolemies and Cleopatra. And we had the Maccabean revolt as possible references around the same era, okay? Right around here. In episode 15, Various Temples Defined, we discussed how Onias fled to Egypt and went to Ptolemy and Queen Cleopatra with a request to build this replica temple in Egypt. Okay, this story is found in the complete works of Flavius Flav, Josephus. For more details on this story about this, please watch episode 15, Various Temples Defined. Also, the Maccabean revolt occurred roughly between 167 to 160 BC. Okay, we have Jerusalem recaptured, the temple rededicated, and the event known as Hanukkah was established. Okay, so that's right about here. Okay, we now have the Hasmonean dynasty. Again, the Hasmonean dynasty did not end the Greek dynasty. Okay, this just showed how much of Judea or Jerusalem that they controlled. It was during this time frame. I can only assume a historical setting to be around 200 BC. I did not get a sense of the total duration of the persecution. Again, scholars believe the persecution of the Jews as events which belong to a recent past, from the time it was written. Now we have a possible setting. So, when was Wisdom of Solomon written? Various scholars say from 145 to 41 AD, 145 BC to 41 AD. Scholars discuss Sirach, the Septuagint, and parts of the Old Testament being completed and or converted by 132 BC. Therefore, wisdom was written after 132 BC, and the book was composed earlier than any of the New Testament writings. Okay, the book was probably written around 120 to 100 BC, considering all the facts. So 100 is right here in the middle of this BC to 200. So you got 120 to 100, possibly the date it was written. Okay, a possible second date for the written composition, according to some scholars, would be around 960 BC if Solomon or any of his friends authored the book. So we're talking way over here. Okay, Solomon, he built the temple in 959. Okay, let's not forget, one scholar believes the author to be Zerubbabel because he completed the second temple approximately 515 BC. Okay, so we got here, second temple completed, Zerubbabel. So, is Zerubbabel the author? I don't know. You research, you decide. Okay, you can pause at any time to review this slide or any slide for that matter. Let's continue. Wisdom of Ben Sira. Okay, Wisdom of Ben Sira is also known as Sirach, which is the common name that most people call it. It's also known as Ecclesiasticus. Wisdom of Sirach, the wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach, the book of instruction, the all virtuous wisdom. Okay, there are actually a few more variations of the title of this book. For example, one source claimed an inscription read, the wisdom of Simeon, the son of Jeshua, the son of Eleazar, the son of Sira. Okay, so that's another example of a possible title of this book. Sirach, description. Sirach is the largest and most comprehensive wisdom book that we have from antiquity, and it has also the distinction of being the oldest book in the Apocrypha. This book has been called Ecclesiasticus in the Latin Church ever since the second half of the 4th century AD. The name Ecclesiasticus is derived from the Old Latin version adopted by Jerome in the Vulgate and is explained to mean church reading book. Regarding the title, Ecclesiasticus, it is generally held that this title was given because the book was the church book, par excellence among the Libri Ecclesiastici, i.e., books which were not admitted into the canon, but which were regarded as edifying and read in the church. Of course, many disagree because during the early centuries of the church, it was not Ecclesiasticus which was the most important, but Wisdom of Solomon, which was most quoted by the fathers. Regardless, Sirach was one of the most important Apocrypha books and placed in the second canon, described as Deuterocanonical. The object of this book is to describe the true nature of wisdom. Sirach is a collection of sayings similar to Proverbs, in my opinion. The material is a collection of short units on various topics, loosely arranged, and deals with all the ordinary social and religious duties. In many parts of this book, it is difficult to discover a logical progression of thought or to discern the principles of arrangement. This book contains a large collection of analogies, moral maxims or proverbs, happiness and woes, numerical sayings, questions and answers, and wise counsels and instructions regarding almost every conceivable emergency in life. One source breaks up the sayings into 41 different categories. Examples: wealth, wives, dreams, prayer, etc. Ben Sira's Book of Wisdom, or Sirach, belongs, together with the Book of Job, a number of the Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Wisdom of Solomon, to the Hakmah, or wisdom literature of the Hebrews. Languages. The translator of this work into Greek clearly states that in the prologue that it was written in Hebrew, and St. Jerome assures us that he has seen the Hebrew original. The problems of ascertaining the existing original text of the book are difficult and complicated. The extant Greek manuscripts of this book are disfigured by numerous interpolations, omissions, and transpositions. The manuscripts fall into two groups. One, which represents a translation of the original Hebrew text, and the other may be a rendering of a Hebrew text revised by a disciple of the original author. There are also two Syriac versions of the book, one of which was made from a Hebrew original, the other from a Greek version. Some claim a primary and a secondary Greek text, each of which is translated from a Hebrew original, and possibly two original texts. In the Greek form of this book, there is ample evidence to show that it is a translation from the Hebrew. Unlike the Wisdom of Solomon, which has very little Hebraisms, Sirach has many Hebraisms due to translation from a Hebrew original. Hebrew text was still accessible in Palestine in Jerome's day, who died approximately 420 AD. Sirach 1 in the G&T. This is the foreword or the prologue. We see this regarding the translation in the prologue. Let me urge you, then, to read this book carefully and with an open mind. And please be patient in those places where, in spite of all my diligent efforts, I may not have translated some phrases very well. What was originally written in Hebrew does not always have exactly the same sense when it is translated into another language. That is true not only of this book, but even of the law itself, the prophets, and the other books. The translations differ quite a bit from the original. Okay? I would like to add that a lot of people like to take English translation, the English translation of Bibles as gospel, as if it has no errors. Look at what was just mentioned in the prologue. Okay? The translations differ quite a bit from the original. Okay? I always think about that.
Now that's really something to think about.
We will now look at the author, original text. Jesus ben Sira, or Sirach, the grandfather. This is the only Apocrypha book, the author of which is known. Ben Sira was a seasoned scribe and a constructor of wise sayings, and belonged to the class of sages, or hakamim, wise men. This means that scholars do not view Sirach as a prophet. Instead, he is considered a wise man. Author, translator. Some believe his name is Jesus or Joshua or Jeshua. See Sirach 50, verse 27, RSV. He is the son of Eleazar, the grandson of Sirach. Took a copy of his grandfather's text to Egypt, believing that the large Jewish population of Alexandria would profit from his ancestors' wisdom. He made a translation of the book into Greek, the language widely used at the time. If you see the name Simeon or Simon, don't ask. Please research for yourself. Some believe the name Simon or Simeon within the title by some scholars was introduced by mistake. because of the praise of the high priest Simon in Sirach chapter 50. Okay, there are even some titles of this book that actually include the name Simon. Again, don't ask. Please research that one for yourself if you think Simon might be the name of the translator. Author. My comments. This whole author thing is confusing to me. Many scholars just say Ben Sira or Sirach, etc. They tend not to say the actual author is or the translator is. In fact, some of the titles to this book lead to confusion as to who is who. For example, the wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach. Is this the grandfather or the grandson? Who has the wisdom? Okay, the wisdom of Jesus, son. Okay, confusion. From what I can see, the phrase Jesus, the son of Sirach, when followed with son of Eleazar, then I am assuming that this is the translator, okay, in my opinion. Again, I highly encourage you to research this information for yourself. In other words, just don't trust what I'm saying is true. Date written. Date is based on references to a few particular people and events. You got Simeon or Simon I, the son of Onias, approximately 300 to 270 BC. You got Simeon or Simon II, son of Onias, approximately 225 to 200 BC. You got Ptolemy III, named Euergetes, I think that's how you say it, the first, 246 to 221 BC. Then you got Ptolemy VII, named Euergetes II, 145 to 116 BC, who reigned as joint king with Ptolemy VI from 170 to 145 BC. We also have a reference to the Battle of Raphia, 217 BC. Some claim it must have been written before the outbreak of the Maccabean Wars soon after 170 BC. I want to point out that scholars do not even agree on these date ranges up here for Simon. So when you read some sources, these date ranges here, they may differ, okay? Scholars do not agree. For those who watched our Maccabees timeline video, recall that the Battle of Raphia was also referenced when trying to establish the date regarding 3 Maccabees. We discussed 3 Maccabees and the Battle of Raphia in episode 40, Apocrypha Timeline, Maccabees and the Hasmonean Dynasty. Okay?
Check it out.
Check it out. Date written continued. The question is which Simon, the high priest, and which Ptolemy. And considering the references regarding the Battle of Raphia and the Maccabean revolt, then a date should be before 170 BC, while the evidence of the prologue suggests a date of 180 BC at the latest. A different scholar believes Simon I was the high priest mentioned, therefore the grandfather must have written the text around 290 to 280 BC or earlier. However, this particular scholar did not mention the Battle of Raphia. Some believe the grandson produced the Greek version in Egypt approximately 117 BC. Another source concludes that the book was probably written 200 BC and translated 140 BC. Historical setting. The historical setting appears to be the same as the date written, in my opinion. Okay, once again, this orange bar represents the Protestant Apocrypha historical setting for all the books in those 14 books, 720 BC to 135 BC. Okay, so where does Sirach fit in historically? Taking into consideration which Simon and Ptolemy are relevant, and considering the references regarding the Battle of Raphia, approximately 217 BC, and the historical event of the Maccabean revolt after 170 BC, then a date should be before 170 BC, and possibly no later than 180 BC, according to the prologue. Another source believes the book was probably written around 200 BC. So that would place us right about here, 200 to 170 roughly. Okay, so before the Hasmonean dynasty. Okay, that's when the original text may have been written. Some believe the grandson produced the Greek version in Egypt around 117 BC, the translated version. Another source believes that the book was translated about 140 BC. Okay, so that takes us here. So we got right here on the left side, original text was probably written here and translated here. Grandfather over here, grandson over here. Original text, translated text, okay? Let's continue. Psalm 151. Information and timeline. There are actually two versions of Psalm 151. We got the Greek Septuagint version, and we got the Hebrew Qumran version. Psalm 151, the Greek Septuagint version. Description, okay, contains one chapter and only 7 verses. Occurs at the end of the book of Psalms in the Greek Bible. Regarded as canonical in the Greek and Russian Orthodox churches. Focuses on David, referencing events from David's life. Verses 1 to 5 are based on 1 Samuel 16. Verses 6 and 7 are based on 1 Samuel 17. Languages. The Septuagint version is Greek. It's the Septuagint, right? May have originated from a Hebrew original. It is the final psalm in the book of Psalms in the Greek Septuagint, the LXX. Author. One manuscript of the Septuagint contains a postscript to Psalm 151 that reads, quote, the 151st Psalms of David, end quote. Date written. We're in Psalm 151 Greek Septuagint, okay? Date written. Likely composed no later than the 3rd century BC, when the exact content and ordering of the book of Psalms was not yet fixed. Some Septuagint manuscripts contain a superscription to the psalm that indicates it is outside the number of 150 psalms, outside of 150. This is Psalm 151, RSV, the Greek Septuagint translation. In this, we see, this psalm is ascribed to David as his own composition, though it is outside the number, after he had fought in single combat with Goliath. Some would argue that David may or may not be the actual author based on this text. Okay, this is at the beginning of Psalm 151. Historical setting. The story of David and Goliath is found in 1 Samuel 17. According to the Bible timeline, this story took place around 1024 BC. Psalm 151, Hebrew Qumran. We are going from the Septuagint version to the Hebrew Qumran version, okay? Description. The text contains 10 lines or verses. I could not find this translation in any Bible. One of 5 non-canonical psalms which were part of a book of discipline dated to the 10th century AD. There are differences between the Septuagint and the Qumran translations due to the different manuscripts that are used. Languages. Qumran discovered, written in Sirach, believed to be originally written in Hebrew. Author. Source claimed that at Qumran, David was considered the author. However, there is one specific phrase which appears to be post-biblical, a phrase similar to those found in Sirach, Babylonian Talmud, Septuagint, and even in Ben Sira. A second phrase is one of the best known from the Qumran literature, which is found in rabbinic literature and the New Testament. These two statements here, well, they kind of make it seem like it might have been written somewhat later. Date written. Since the classical poetic style probably ended in the post-exilic period, the song could be dated to the 6th century BC or earlier. Possible date in the Persian period, approximately 550 to 330 BC. A study of languages argues a date to the Hellenistic period would be very difficult to establish, although the document in its present form dates to this period. The language used is biblical, even though some idioms used are of post-biblical origin. The poetic style is used more in establishing a date. However, the date of authorship is probably 6th century BC. So they say. Once again, this orange bar represents the Protestant Apocrypha historical setting for all the Protestant books. So, where does Psalm 151 fit in historically? We already know it doesn't. The historical setting would be 1024 BC, according to the Bible timeline. Okay, that's a couple hundred, years before our timeline that we're showing here. Okay, the story of David and Goliath is in 1 Samuel 17. The original text for the Septuagint translation was written no later than 300 to 200 BC. Okay, so that's what this represents here. That's about 300. Here's 200. The Septuagint version. Due to the poetic style, the Qumran text could be dated to the 6th century BC or earlier. A different source claims a possible date in the Persian period, 550 to 330 BC. Okay, so that's what we see right here. Okay, that's the Qumran version, the Septuagint version. Still others claim that certain phrases appear to be post-biblical, similar to those found in Sirach, Babylonian Talmud, the Septuagint, found in rabbinic literature, and/or the New Testament. Okay, so is that what they're talking about here? Post-biblical? After Jesus' day? 100 AD? Don't know. Again, if you'd like to review this slide, just pause. Let's move on. Final comments. Most of the information presented today came from one or more of the sources listed on our source slides in the administrative section of this video. We presented very little of our own personal opinion in this entire video. We presented detailed information on Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, and Psalm 151. Here are some final comments. Final comments, Wisdom of Solomon. Either quoted or referenced by many early church fathers such as Irenaeus and Tertullian. Declared canonical by the Third Council of Carthage 397 AD, and the Councils of Sardis 347 AD, Constantinople in Trullo 692 AD, Toledo 675 AD, Florence 1438, and in the fourth session of the Council of Trent 1546. Some of the fathers, believing the book to be by Solomon, thought it divinely inspired and therefore canonical, including Hippolytus, Cyprian, and Ambrose, etc. Other fathers, though denying that Solomon was the author, yet believed it canonical, Origen, Eusebius, Augustine, etc. It remained in the canon until the time of the Reformation, when Luther first separated it and put it with the rest of the Apocrypha. Wisdom is referred to in the feminine and personified to the highest point in the Apocrypha. Wisdom is identified with the Spirit of the Lord, chapter 9, verse 17, the hand of God, chapter 14, verse 6, God's providence, chapter 14, verse 3, and power, chapter 1, verse 3. Wisdom is said to possess intelligence, holiness, ability of being kind and charitable, omnipotence, and having infinite awareness. Wisdom also has other personifications such as expressions of breath, effluence, mirror, and image of God. However, the author stopped short of attributing to wisdom deity. It appears that the biggest issue with the Wisdom of Solomon is its authorship, in my opinion. Final comments, Sirach. It appears that there is little doubt who is the author. It is Jesus ben Sira, or Sirach, the grandfather of the actual writer or translator. Sirach's grandson was the translator of the text. It appears that any questions regarding the authenticity of the text deals with possible corrupt text and how some isms were possibly included in the text. For example, possible Arabisms or even possible Persian influences. Others claim possible translation or retranslation issues. Sirach was mentioned as being one of the canonical books at the Council of Hippo 393 AD. At the Council of Carthage 397 AD, the 5 books of Solomon, i.e., Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Canticles, Wisdom, and Sirach, are reckoned among the canonical scriptures. This was also confirmed by the Council of Carthage in 419 AD. For 15 centuries, most Christians regarded Sirach as part of their Old Testament. The disappearance of the Hebrew manuscript may ultimately be explained for its exclusion from the canon. Martin Luther and other early reformers sought to limit the Protestant Old Testament canon to the Jewish Hebrew canon. Take it down from what it was, take it down to the books we have today. Sirach and other Deuterocanonical books were relegated to the Apocrypha section. Final comments, Psalm 151. There are similarities and differences between the Septuagint and the Qumran versions of Psalm 151. One major difference is the act of beheading of a man, Goliath. It is in the Septuagint, not in the Qumran version. They appear to be based on different underlying manuscripts and even different versions of the psalm itself. Recall that the Septuagint version has 7 verses, while the Qumran version has 10 verses or lines. Some argue that the Septuagint original language is Greek, while the Qumran is Hebrew. Closing remarks.
What do you think?
Before we close out this discussion, we have a few more questions. What is your opinion on Ben Sira or Sirach after hearing this discussion? Did you know Wisdom and Sirach were both considered canonical until the 1500s? Did you know there are more than 150 Psalms? Did you know there are 2 different versions of Psalm 151? Please put your answers in the comment section of this video, or you can send us an email. Please check the description box of this channel for that email, or we always try to have our email in the description text of all of our video discussions. Once again, we thank you for your feedback. Purpose. Once again, the purpose of these timeline videos is to simply provide some detailed information on each Apocrypha book to get a historical perspective on what each book is about, and eventually discuss how they fit or do not fit into the canon, and eventually compare these findings to current canonical writings. Research.
Remember, do your own research.
The views contained in this video were our personal opinions and our interpretations of sources used and were not meant to dictate doctrine. We recommend to everyone, do your own research. We plan to list all of our sources that we use in all of our video discussions. We are citing the sources and, when appropriate, providing page numbers so you can trust but verify. We encourage everyone, read as much as you can. There is a lot of historical Israelite literature out there for all of us to access. And we admit some material is hard to find. This concludes today's discussion on the Apocrypha chronology and composition, Wisdom of Solomon and Ben Sira. #Apocrypha timeline. We also slipped in a discussion of Psalm 151, although it is not in the current Protestant Apocrypha. We want to thank you for watching this discussion of something to think about. I am Brother Mitch, and my brother is Brother Mike. We are the brothers. We are disciples of Yahawashi. I want to say Shalom and Shalom Israel. Goodbye, Christians. Aight to everyone else. Till next time.
Follow the brothers.
On YouTube,
Hebrew Connect TV.
X,
Fanbase,
Rumble.
or visit their website.
See also Facebook, Gab, and Truth.
The following is an HBO special featuring the brothers.
Yo, can you help the brothers out?
HBO special.
you can use PayPal.
The brothers need some digital money.
Or you can use CashApp.
Every little bit helps.
Please support their efforts.
You can even use a credit card.
And Venmo.
Why are you selling cookies?
Please help support this organization.
It's okay if you can't give. Just spread the word.
That's just as important as giving.
Precious.